pro road cyclists, blessed with good genes, shiny legs, and huge amounts of skill, grit, and determination. It is easy to see why many of us want to emulate them. And while copying their training plans and power numbers is most likely a futile endeavor, we can at least buy the same tech that they get to ride. But be warned, some of that tech is more useful to the average Joe than others. So here are 6 bits of pro tech you do not need. Picture the scene. You've just lost the sprint for the street sign before the local cafe and you are looking for an excuse. But what could it be? Could it be overtraining? Or could it be a misshift when dropping down the gears? Perhaps it's the pollen making you feel a little bit blocked up. To be honest, those excuses feel a little bit too obvious. How about going for something that will really throw people? You didn't have your aero nose-piece sunglasses on. Yes, I'm saying it with my tongue firmly in my cheek, but you may have seen sprint powerhouse Dylan Groenewegen riding with a €350 aero beak attached to his Cycon sunglasses at the 2024 Tour de France. As you might expect, this caused quite a stir, and we're putting some of the best reactions on screen now. The fact that this little piece of plastic costs €350 should already tell you that it's probably not for the likes of you and I. But price aside, an aero beak must make the most marginal of marginal gains. And I would imagine there's some low-hanging fruit that we can all work on before shelling out for such an accessory. Perhaps a little bit more training or just watching what we eat. So let's circle back to my original point. If the product in question isn't worthy of being a legitimate excuse, then it's probably not for you, or for me for that matter. If you are arguably the greatest sprinter of all time, then chances are you'll be using the latest and greatest tech available. So it comes as no surprise that Mark Cavendish had what we worked out to be a £180,000 setup when going for his record-breaking 35th stage win at the Tour de France. Granted, the majority of that figure does come from his Richard Mille watch, but we were far more interested in his £1,000 P35 no-pin socks. If you were wondering, P35 stands for Project 35, in a nod towards his hunt for that elusive 35th stage victory. Interestingly, Cav actually used his regular, non-aero, non-£1,000 socks when he broke the record, so it goes to show that even at the very top, it's still fitness and skill that wins races and rarely the tech. So I think we can all agree that while they look very nice and are probably optimized to within an inch of their lives, I think none of us really need £1,000 socks. But if you think I'm wrong and you can think of a compelling reason why, then I'd love to know down in the comments below. Next up on our list, we have what I like to call fancy carbon bits. And by that I mean the small carbon components that are added to pros bikes to make them just that tiny bit lighter. Think carbon bottle cages, top caps, disc rotors, and chain rings. Now, of course, there is actually some logic to this. Since the advent of disc brakes and the widespread proliferation of all things aero, bikes have been getting heavier. You only have to go back around 10 years and mechanics were adding weights to bikes so they could hit the UCI's minimum weight limit of 6.8 kilos. In this day and age, it's rare to see a pro race bike under the 7 kilo mark, with some being closer to 8 kilos in the larger sizes. Tadej Pogacar's Colnago V4 RS is a prime example of fancy carbon bits. There is no doubt it's a competitively light bike, but they still need to add boutique disc rotors and chainrings from Italian brand Carbon Tie to get the weight as low as possible. And if you were wondering, the disc rotors cost about €185 each and weigh just 160 grams for the pair. The chainrings are equally tasty as well, with a size 54 tooth weighing just 114 grams, but costing €250. So if your name is Tadej and you're trying to win the biggest race on the planet, then you will be grateful for every fancy carbon component that you can get your hands on. But if your name is Ted and you're trying to win the sprint to the local cafe, then I'd wager they're probably something that you can live without. Ceramic bearings have been adorning the bikes of pros for a number of years, so they're certainly no flash in the pan piece of tech. The logic goes that they decrease the drag in your drivetrain or wheel bearings, thus giving you some free speed. We've all probably seen those videos of bottom brackets spinning freely thanks to ceramic bearings, so they must be pretty good, right? Well, yes they are, but, and it's a big but, they are incredibly expensive when you consider the watts per cost saved. Exact numbers are hard to come by, but if we take something like a ceramic bottom bracket, it may cost hundreds of pounds and only save 1 or 2 watts at most. Plus, if you haven't perfectly optimized the rest of your drivetrain setup, and by that I mean a spotless chain, a newish cassette and chainrings, and tyres inflated to match your weight and the riding terrain, then any gains from ceramic accessories will likely all but disappear. While having a bit of red or blue anodizing around your bottom bracket does look quite cool, I think this is something that we all do not need. Aero, of course, is the current buzzword in the world of cycling tech, and it's easy to see why. Optimizing things like your clothing, body position, and bike to be as slippery as possible is basically speed for free, and who doesn't like a bit of free speed? However, once you've gotten the aforementioned larger gains out of the way, the aero gains start to become more and more marginal. And in the case of the front wheel specific 111 tyre from Continental, far more expensive. Let's get the elephant in the room out of the way first. This tyre costs just shy of €120. For that, you get a tyre which Continental claims has reduced aerodynamic drag and improved crosswind stability thanks in part to the 48 vortex generators spread across the tyre. The 111 was developed in collaboration with aero specialists Swisside and wheel giants DT Swiss, so I suspect the tyres could be optimised for use with certain wheels from their range, which might mean that if you want to go all in, you'll be buying a brand new set of wheels to go with your €120 aero tyre. As I've said numerous times already in this video, that certainly sounds like something a pro would do. The rest of us, I think not. Last on our list, but by no means least, is aero bottles. You may have seen the recent Trek Madone now comes with aero bottles in its top spec build. These neatly blend into the frame and actually look pretty nice if you ask me. The logic does make sense on aero bottles as well, because what's the point of having a beautiful, aerodynamically optimized frame if it loses some of the gains once you put your water bottles in? And Trek have been smart by making sure you can still fit a regular water bottle into the aero cage found on the new Madone, so it's easy to mix and match if the need arises. But as with everything else on this list, I would imagine those bottles, and the cages for that matter, will be more expensive than a more standard setup. Plus, any gains you make are likely to be marginal at best. So once again, it begs the question, are you trying to win the Tour de France or a classic? If so, then you probably need it. For the rest of us, probably not.